Hey everyone, how's it going? In this video, we're going to work through an example involving some more trig questions. The problem says, consider the identity that's shown here. First thing we have to do is prove this identity, and then we have to say for which values of x on the interval 0 to x to 180 will the identity be undefined. So let's first go through proving this. Now, first thing I'm going to focus on is this 180 minus x. So I want to find a way if there's some way I could kind of rewrite that to make it a little neater. Right here I have the graph of sine of x. Now, let me just try plugging in some values. If I look at, 270 right here, I have a value of -1. Now, what's 180 minus 270? Well, that's going to be -90. The graph of -90 is going to continue kind of down to here, and we're going to have another value of -1. Okay, what about 180? At 180 we have a value of 0. If I do 180 minus 180, I have a value of 0, and sine of 0 is 0. So you could do this to any point, and what you're actually going to find out is that sine of 180 minus x is just equal to sine of x. Okay, that's useful. Now let's take a look at the second part, this cosine of x minus 360. So here's a graph of cosine. Once again, I'm going to take a random point, such as this 180, and we have a value of -1. Now if I do if I do 180 minus 360, I get a value of -180. So if I go to -180, you see I have a value of -1 again. Let's do the same thing for 90. So 90 minus 360 is -270. If I go to -270, which is right here, I have another value of 0. So as you can see here, the value of cosine of x minus 360 just equals cosine of x. Great, so now we can rewrite actually this entire thing. So it's going to be 8 sine of x, 8 sine of x, cosine of x, over sine squared x minus sine squared 90 plus x. So sine squared x minus sine squared 90 plus x. Okay, so we cleaned it up a little bit, but there's still one thing bugging me. This is 90 plus x. If we think of the graphs of sine and cosine, we see this value right here. If I look at this, that's a little hard to see. If I look at this piece of the graph of cosine, then that's actually looks like this part of the graph, or the sine graph, but shifted over. And how much is it shifted over by? Well, 90 degrees. Because in the sine graph, it goes from 90 to 180. And in the cosine graph, it goes from 0 to 90. So actually, we can rewrite this sine squared of 90 plus x as just cosine squared of x. So it's going to give us 8 sine x cosine x over sine squared x minus cosine squared x. Awesome. Now we're going to have to do a little bit of simplification. So this 8 sine x cosine x, I'm going to break this apart. I'm going to pull out a 4, and in parentheses I'm going to leave 2 sine x cosine x. And in the denominator, I'm going to pull out a negative sign. So I'm going to have a -1, and that means I'm going to have a positive cosine squared x minus a sine squared x. Now, 2 sine x cosine x, that's actually an identity. That is equal to 4 times sine of 2x. And now this part right here, that's also an identity. That's equal to -1 times cosine of 2x. Okay, so now what is sine of 2x over cosine of 2x. Well, sine over cosine is tangent. So if I have sine 2x over cosine 2x, well, that's just going to simplify to -4 tangent of 2x. So this is what we got when we ultimately simplified the left side. And our goal was to match it to the right side. The right side is -4 tangent of 2x. And that's exactly what we got. Okay, now the second part of the problem wants us to say for which values of x between 0 and 180 is this function undefined. And now we have to list, well, what makes a function undefined? A function is undefined when the denominator, so the denominator equals 0, or if it goes to infinity, right? Because if it goes to infinity, that's also considered undefined. And the denominator equals 0, well, we can't divide by 0, so that's what makes that undefined. So I'm going to look at some things here and try to pull out the numbers. It's pretty difficult to use this right here to figure out when it's equal to 0 or when it's undefined. That's a pretty messy equation. Same with this, and same with this. But this right here, that seems pretty easy. I can work with this. This denominator right here, basically, whenever cosine of 2x equals 0, we have an undefined situation. So let's look at our graph of cosine. Cosine is equal to 0 when x is equal to 90. So when x is equal to 90, here we have 2x. So 2 times something must equal 90, which means x must equal 45 degrees. So that's one case. And there's no other cases between 0 and 180 when cosine is 0. So now when we're dealing with undefined functions, cosine is always defined. But tangent, on the other hand, that can be undefined. And if you're familiar with the graph of tangent, you know tangent is undefined at certain values. And the x value that produces that is x equals 135 degrees. So these are the values at which the function, or the equation rather, is undefined. I hope this video helped. If you have any questions, let me know. And as always, happy studying. If you found this video helpful, please take a second to hit the like button or comment down below. If anything in this video was unclear, or if you had a question about any other topic, please don't hesitate to comment it or send it to me in a message and I'll do my best to answer it for you. Thanks for your support and happy studying.